I never imagined walking back into my father's world after 15 long years of silence, much less with an old man by my side, someone whose presence alone would shake the foundations of everything my family believed to be true. But fate has a strange way of stitching together stories that were never meant to touch. It began with a letter. A real letter, not an email, not a WhatsApp message, but an envelope sealed with the embossed crest of my father's law firm. The kind of letter that instantly smells like bad news or old money. My landlady found it wedged between the electricity bill and a fast food flyer and handed it to me like it was radioactive. "Marcus looks official," she said, raising an eyebrow. Official wasn't the right word. Ominous was better. I tore it open on the spot. Notice of inheritance, meeting for the estate of Jonathan Hale. My father, a man who had been dead to me long before he actually died. For a few minutes I just stood there, letting the words sink in. We hadn't spoken since the day I left home at 19. I still remembered that argument, the slammed door, his disappointed glare, my sister Abigail crying on the stairs. I walked away from all of it, our mansion, our reputation, the Hale fortune. I built a life far from that polished world, working odd jobs, scraping by, earning my freedom inch by inch. But now, for some reason, the past wanted me back. The letter said the meeting would take place in a week. Attendance was strongly recommended. I laughed, strongly recommended. That was my father, even in death, still controlling, still issuing orders. I almost threw the letter away. Almost. But 3 days later, while I was taking the late bus home from a double shift, I heard someone struggling to climb aboard, an elderly man with a cane, breath hitching, carrying a suitcase that looked heavier than he did. I helped him find a seat. He thanked me with a voice softened by age but sharpened by decades of stories. His name was Arthur. He had just arrived in the city, looking for temporary lodging, and somehow we ended up talking the entire ride. He was gentle, bright-eyed despite the wrinkles, with a way of listening that made you feel seen. When we got off at the same stop, I offered to carry his suitcase. It wasn't long before one conversation turned into a shared meal, then a longer talk on the cold apartment steps. I don't know why I trusted him the way I did. Maybe because he didn't look at me with pity or expectation. Maybe because he reminded me of something I never had, a grandfather figure, someone steady. When I mentioned the letter, he placed a warm hand over mine. "You should go," he said quietly. "Sometimes the dead leave more than the living expect." His tone held something heavy, something knowing. "Come with me," I blurted. I don't know what made me say it. Maybe the fear of facing my family alone, maybe curiosity, maybe instinct, but he didn't hesitate. "If you need me there," he said, "I'll be there." And that was how, 1 week later, I found myself pushing open the glass doors of Hale and Associates, with an old man in a worn coat walking carefully beside me. The room was just as I remembered it, polished mahogany, walls lined with framed degrees, the faint smell of leather and power. My sister Abigail was already there, sitting straight-backed at the long table. Her pearl earrings gleamed. Her posture was perfect as always. But when she saw me, really saw me, her face drained of color. "Marcus," she whispered as if she were seeing a ghost. Then her eyes slid toward Arthur, and something in her expression shifted from shock to sheer, unfiltered panic. Her hand flew to her mouth. "No," she breathed. "No, that can't be." Arthur gave her a gentle nod, almost apologetic. Abigail recoiled. The lawyer, Mr. Pennington, cleared his throat and invited us to sit. Abigail's eyes never left Arthur. They were wide, terrified, begging for an explanation none of us had offered yet. I leaned toward her. "Abby, what's wrong? Do you know him?" She shook her head violently. I don't know anything. I don't understand." But she did. I could see it. And so could Arthur. The meeting began as estate readings usually do, formally, emotionlessly, with legal jargon about assets, properties, accounts, and trusts. Abigail received the lion's share of everything. She always had been the golden child, the compliant one, the achiever, the favorite. To me, he left almost nothing. A box. A simple wooden box. No explanation. No sentimental final message. No apology for the years of silence. Just a box. But the real storm arrived when Mr. Pennington paused, shuffled papers, and cleared his throat with unusual hesitation. "There is one more matter," he said, "a personal addendum from your father." Abigail stiffened. Arthur remained still, eyes lowered. Mr. Pennington continued. Jonathan Hale wrote a supplemental letter to be read in the presence of both children and a third party he identified by name. He instructed that the inheritance meeting was incomplete unless this individual attended. He looked across the table directly at Arthur. "Mr. Arthur Ballard." Abigail flinched at the name. My heartbeat spiked. Arthur lifted his head, his eyes wet but steady. Mr. Pennington unfolded the letter. My father's handwriting spilled across the page, cold, elegant, controlled. If Arthur Ballard is present, proceed. If he is absent, reschedule until he is. Abigail swallowed hard. Her knuckles turned white around her pen. Mr. Pennington read, "To my children, Abigail and Marcus, there is something you have been denied your entire lives, something I was too much of a coward to reveal. Your mother knew, Arthur knew, I knew, but neither of you did. The truth is this: Arthur Ballard is more than an acquaintance, more than a friend, more than a business associate. He is the man I loved." The room collapsed into silence. Time stopped. My breath hitched. But Abigail, she broke. Her chair scraped backward. "This is insane," she cried. "Father wasn't, he wouldn't, he wasn't." Her voice cracked. Arthur silently laid a trembling hand on the table. The truth sat between us, heavy and stunning. My father loved a man. Loved this man. For decades. Mr. Pennington kept reading. "I spent my life pretending for the sake of our reputation, pretending to be the man society demanded I be. And in my pretending, I hurt the people I loved most. Arthur, whom I never publicly acknowledged. Your mother, who lived beside a ghost. And you, my children, who grew up with a hollow version of me. If you wish to resent me, resent me. I have earned it, but know the truth. Arthur Ballard is family. Treat him as such." Abigail buried her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. Mr. Pennington continued the final lines. "My request is simple. Allow Arthur to choose something from my estate, anything he wants. And to my children, if you have any love left for me, do not turn him away." Then it ended. Just like that. The air felt thick and fragile, as if one wrong move would shatter everything. Abigail stood abruptly and stormed toward the door, stopping only when Arthur whispered her name. "Abby." She froze. It was the first time I'd heard him speak her name with that tenderness, like he had spoken it for years, privately, invisibly. Slowly she turned. Her eyes were full of something I rarely saw in her: fear. "Did you know?" she asked, voice cracking. Arthur shook his head softly. "Not until yesterday." "Yesterday," she repeated. He nodded. "When Marcus invited me." I blinked. "Invited you? Wait, Arthur, did you know my father?" He exhaled slowly, shoulders trembling. "Yes, Marcus," he said. "I did, more deeply than you can imagine." My stomach dropped. He looked at both of us, his voice failing as memories cracked through. "I met your father before either of you were born. We loved each other, but society in those days was merciless. He chose the life expected of him: marriage, children, a perfect family image, and I walked away because loving him from the shadows was breaking us both. Abigail shook her head, tears falling freely. But you came back. Arthur nodded. Your mother called me. She said he was dying. She said he needed to see me one last time. Silence. Pain. Revelation. Abigail spoke again, voice trembling. He loved you. Arthur nodded, tears running down the deep lines of his face, until his last breath. I felt something twisting in my chest, not anger, not betrayal, something softer, something tragic. My father had lived a life wearing armor, and only now, in death, were we seeing the person underneath. Abigail sank into her chair, defeated. Then she whispered, "Why didn't he tell us?" Arthur's answer was simple. Because he was afraid you would stop loving him. When the meeting ended, Mr. Pennington excused himself, leaving the three of us in the vast, quiet room. Abigail reached for a tissue, wiping her eyes. I don't know how to process this, she admitted. Neither do I said. Arthur stood, gathering his coat. I can leave. You don't owe me anything. But something inside me cracked open. A lifetime of distance, resentment, unanswered questions, all of it blurred into a strange, fragile understanding. Stay, I said, please. Abigail hesitated, then gave a small nod. We sat there, the three of us, in the echo of a truth that had taken decades to reveal itself. The truth that love, real love, doesn't always fit the shape the world demands. Later, when Arthur was leaving, he stopped beside me. You didn't have to invite me, he said, but you did, thank you. I nodded, I'm glad I did. He touched my shoulder gently. Your father would be too. I swallowed hard. Arthur, would you maybe want to get coffee sometime? Tell me more about him. His eyes softened with grief and gratitude. I would like that very much, Marcus. And as he walked out into the late afternoon sun, I realized something. For the first time in many years, my family wasn't shrinking. It was growing. Not in the way I expected, but perhaps in the way it always should have.